Then I went again.
Well, he said
spiritual dimension.
How precious and how unimportant the world was, and I became a family.
Everyone else was astonished.
Dr. Harold Cerebro is a leading medical practitioner in Johannesburg, South Africa.
In the course of my life, I came across Rabbi Bernard, who was a very wonderful person, very concerned about the community. And he was my rabbi at the Oxford Synagogue in Johannesburg. And the whole family was very close to Rabbi Bernard. And one day he arrived in my office on I think it was a Thursday afternoon, and he had a pile of x-rays in his hand. And he insisted to the nurse in charge that he has to see me because it's very urgent and he has a major problem. And she came to tell me, and I managed to finish with a patient I was busy with. And then I asked him to come into the office, and he said he's got a very sick lady. The x-rays have been sent to the Rebbe. The Rebbe says that she cannot have an operation. So I said to him, what's the problem? So he said, no, look at the x-rays. So I said, okay, give me the x-rays. Gave me the x-rays, and we put them up on long rows, and you could clearly see that there was a cancer of the kidney at the upper pole of the kidney on the right. Well circumscribed cancer, big mass on an IVP, which is an intravenous pyelogram. So I said, are these the x-rays you sent to the Rebbe? He said, yes. I said, well, it shows a clear cancer there. And he said, well, the Rebbe says that no operation can be done on this lady. For the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to call her Mrs. Levine. He says, no operation can be done on this lady, and she's a very frum lady. When they bought her house, they asked the Rebbe, and he told them it's a good house, and they're very happy there. And when her husband went into business, it was a jewelry business, he got permission from the Rebbe in a nice way, and the Rebbe blessed him, and he did extremely well. And now, with the operation, he sent the x-rays to the Rebbe, and he wanted to know what he must do. If the Rebbe would have said operate, it would have been done. But the Rebbe categorically refused to recommend surgery, and he then gave me the report. So I said to him, Rabbi Bernard, there's a big cancer here. And I'm afraid to say, I said, you and the Rebbe, you can't interfere with the medical care of a patient. Here's her name, it's on the report. Here's the cancer, it's well described. And you've got to do this as an urgent operation. Rabbi Bernard said, well, you know, we have to obey what the Rebbe says. There has to be a major reason why he didn't recommend this operation. So I said, well, let me look at every x-ray. So I took the x-rays, and one at a time, I looked at them. And you could see the cancer clearly on all the x-rays. And getting near the end of this big pile of x-rays, at the bottom I saw Mrs. van der Merwe. So I said to Rabbi Bernard, Rabbi, what are you doing with a Mrs. van der Merwe? He said, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, what are you doing with a whole lot of goyim? He said, I'm not dealing with goyim. So I said to him, is this Mrs. Levine's x-rays or is this Mrs. van der Merwe's x-rays? So he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, it says here, Mrs. van der Merwe on the x-rays. Give me the x-rays. I started looking again through the whole pile, and all the x-rays were labeled at the bottom, in almost obscured by the blackness of it. This is before x-rays came on tape, and it's before MRI scans, and it's before ultrasound, okay? I said, these x-rays belong to a Mrs. van der Merwe, but the report in here says Mrs. Levine. I'm going to phone the hospital where this x-ray was on this date. So I told the secretary to phone the hospital, which she did, and I spoke to the gentleman, the doctor in charge, and I said, on this particular day, how many IVPs did you do? He said 2 in the afternoon, 1 on a Mrs. Levine and 1 on a Mrs. van der Merwe. I said, you've got a serious problem, my friend, because you've taken Mrs. van der Merwe's x-rays. You've put them in a folder labeled Mrs. Levine. You've reported on Mrs. Levine as having this cancer. The cancer is in Mrs. van der Merwe. So you better come to my office immediately so that we can get... So you take these x-rays, you get hold of Mrs. van der Merwe, you get hold of Mrs. Levine, you correct the reports, you correct the folders. And I said to him, because this lady was going to have an operation on a kidney, which she doesn't need. And the x-rays were sent overseas, and she asked for religious advice about it, and the advice was to not to do the operation. And that was brilliant advice, because it has actually saved 3 people. It saved the lady, Mrs. Levine, from an unnecessary operation. It's getting Mrs. van der Merwe the urgent operation that she needs, and it's saving you from a lawsuit.